Anybody who ever rode a high-powered horse, it's a thrill. It's hard to describe. This is the top of the top of the top.
She is an incredible athlete. If she were a person, you'd see me and be like, well, that's not fair. You can just run that fast and do that naturally and on your own, and I have to try 10 times harder.
Dressage horses actually have to be incredibly fit. The strength of a long-distance runner combined with a bit like a weightlifter, and then to do it with the grace of a dancer.
They need to run so hard and stop so hard, and then they need to turn so fast, and then they need to circle in so fast and slow down. Everything needs to be really good, because other than that, they can't perform.
At the highest level requires a very quick-thinking, smart horse. The animal has to really want to do the job and love the job.
Horses are fragile. There's a big value in these horses, and you have to look at longevity.
Giving these athletes the best situation possible to get out there and be their best, that's on us.
Instead of it's just a lame horse, fix it. Now veterinarians think differently about sports medicine. These are equine athletes. How can we keep them going at their best? It's changed a lot.
And a lot of times for these elite horses, prevention is as much as cure. The healthier you keep them, the less you have to fix.
A lot goes in behind the scene. Your average person probably doesn't see and doesn't realize how much effort and time goes into those horses.
We give them acupuncture, chiropractic, massage, joint injections, spa treatments. They all get better treatment than I do.
And it goes from grooms to assistant grooms to assistant trainers, and the trainers multiple farriers, and it's just got a mass of people that work in just one barn on those horses.
It's a big deal because there's a lot of money at it.
I think everybody competing here is enough of a horseman who can see if a horse cannot handle the mental pressure, they would back off. And I did it before. I paid a lot of money for a horse and I had to tell the clients, I'm sorry, it's not good enough. You're running for $1 million. Everybody's talking about it. This is pretty cool to be part of that.
All of these athletes are celebrated by every person that gets out there because it's not easy to get to this level. She leaves it out there every time, every time.
When I was in vet school, the horse always intrigued me, and it's an animal that I like to work with. I enjoyed it. Even in the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of them were performance animals, and so there was sports medicine aspects to it. And we didn't really identify it back then as sports medicine, but as the performance horse came up, they started to care about and want to know more about sports medicine. The overall picture is one that it was challenging and it's constantly developing. As the sport horse disciplines have gotten bigger, we know that there's certain injuries that are predisposed by a certain type of work. So a reiner or a cutting horse doesn't get the same injuries that a 3-day event horse or a jumper gets, or a dressage horse, etc. But the one thing that transcends all of the disciplines and makes them into one is that we have so many more modalities now to treat the problems and actually make them better, as opposed to treat them to just quiet them down so that they get worse more slowly. Where we are today with sport horses and where we were 40 years ago with sport horses is a huge gap. The average lifespan when I got out of school of a typical horse would be 15 to 17 years old. And now we've got performance horses that are in their 20s that are showing. Now we have things that are not detrimental to the animals, the horses especially in competition, that prolongs and extends their ability to perform to their maximum. And there's a tremendous amount of veterinarians well-schooled in sports medicine, rehabilitation, all the aspects it takes to keep a performance horse going. Breeding has been the cornerstone of the thoroughbred industry for years. Breeding a performance horse has a lot to do with pedigree. I mean, there's no question. We know that certain stallions crossed with certain mares in general give you a cross that's going to be made to be a better performer. And I have friends that'll, they'll rattle off to you the sire of the dam going back 3 generations, And I'm going, wow, you lost me about the second one. But those things are the thing you get to start with, and then it's the eye and what happens to that foal as it grows. And so now we find much more advancing of the disciplines and finding the performances so much higher because they are breeding and following the horses that perform, and that's the stuff that's exciting.
Well, the performance horse industry has gotten where bloodlines have been more and more a factor in increasing the odds or the percentages of raising a horse that can compete and win. It's a very complicated process to raise a horse to perform at a high level. It starts with making sure you have the right mating at breeding, then raising a foal that has all the conformation traits and the trainability traits that we need to have. Some people, when they breed performance to performance. So with no regard to conformation or mind or anything, they just breed champion to champion. I mean, you want to breed to the best stud or the best mare that's available, but I like to take into consideration as well conformation and disposition. If I've got a mare that's a little hot, I like to think I'm going to try to breed a little better mind on the foal and breed it to a stud that's known to have foals with good dispositions, or vice versa. If you get a mare that's a little docile, you breed to a stud that maybe foals are a little more animated.
Early on in my career in Texas, my job that I cultivated wasn't really being done a lot in Texas at the time, and that was an application of a full-time hands-on broodmare operation, so that your valuable mare could come into my hands and you could trust that they were going to be treated as if they were mine, because her health, her frame of mind, her ability to handle her is all going to impact that foal when it arrives. I would say the last 25 years, that's become a more thought about process. How you take care of those mares is your starting ground for what that foal could be later on in his show career. He must be healthy in utero to be healthy when born, must be cared for and be healthy during his time on his mother's side, going on into the yearling year until you finally hand that foal over to the trainer as a 2-year-old to begin their process.
Danny and I own a stallion called CD Lights. He was sired by C. Diolina, the horse I won the 94 NCHA for charity on, and the 95 NCHA Derby, and he was also the 1995 NCHA Horse of the Year. C.D. Lights himself had a very good show career. He won right in around $250,000. And then he's went on to sire foals that have won right in and around almost $6 million. The C.D. Lights onto the Shining Spark mares was the #1 cross in the rein cow horse industry. What C.D. Lights provided in that cross was he had a great mind, and he threw a great mind on his colts.
Well, this horse is bred to be a cow horse, but he's still built like we'd want a cutting horse or really any performance horse to be. You know, he's got a good head and a good eye on him. You know, good eye normally is indicative of a horse that should be, for the most part, easier to train, better minded. He's got the balance we're talking about. His neck is proportional from here to here, is proportional to here to the length of his hip. So he's built to do the job.
The unique thing about a cutting horse is, and the part that makes my job at training cutting horses enjoyable, is we encourage a horse to think and anticipate the cow. She's stopping on her own. She's thinking about that cow. She just really doesn't know what to do with it all the time. There you go. The more they think and the more they anticipate, the better that horse gets to be as far as a performer. And there's very few Western disciplines that encourage that, because it just doesn't factor into performing at a high level to let those horses think and anticipate. And that's what I think I like most about the cutting horse industry. I think we have a very unique horse. The horses really like what they do.
Training is a very important part of getting to a goal. There's a lot of trainers, and each one has different training techniques to get the horse to do whatever discipline it is. We have a lot more tools to help train the horse and have them not have setbacks, but know that they are actually trained adequately to meet the level that they need to be. So we build up the stamina as well as the speed parts.
I like that. That's great. You don't want to see it moving up too much with him, else he's going to get too strong on you.
There's been a ton of information that started 15 years ago with conditioning the horse. People didn't know what conditioning a horse was. You know, you go out and ride them and put them away and you go. But now there's a tremendous amount of science that shows us how do we train our horse to be, you know, an elite athlete or an athlete that's performing, that's fit enough to maybe not get hurt. A structured program in any athletic endeavor is critical to the end result.
I'm a 3-day event rider, which is often referred to as a triathlon of equestrian sports. My first phase is dressage. And the second phase, our most exciting phase, is the cross country. And the third phase is show jumping. One entry is per horse. So one horse will do dressage, cross country, and show jumping, and the combined score is my final result. In my barn, I have a whole range of horses that have their specialties, and I oftentimes wish I could use this one for dressage and that one for cross country and that one for show jumping, but that's not the reality. Each horse has to perform all 3 phases. My horses have to be very fit, strong, but also very flexible. So the whole week we develop their muscles and develop their endurance. Most of our day-to-day training is dressage. And that doesn't mean I'm in a rectangle practicing movements. It's just the communication and base work. And that's also when I'm my horse's physical therapist. That's when I'm putting on, you know, equal strength and flexibility and really listening to them and building a language. We do start training our horses and producing them at a young age. You do see them eventing and competing as 4-year-olds. That's the youngest age they can compete in eventing. But 13 years old is actually still a nice young age for the highest levels of the sport, because it takes so long to put in the required training. That's why I think there's this added pressure to make sure these animals are kept their healthiest, soundest throughout their career, because it takes a long time to get them to the top. we'll tailor programs to a horse's individual needs and just keep them and their happiest. The biggest thing is we really just need to listen to them, and that's what I feel like my team of people around my horses, we really listen to them, and that's our responsibility. My typical week with my horses, if they're competing on the weekend, they might get a Monday off, and then they have a really nice long trail ride, stretchy day. They do a couple days a week of flat work, a day of jumping, and 1 or 2 days of fitness. So the cross country is really the heart of our sport. I think that's why all eventers do this sport. If you didn't love cross country, you'd probably be doing a pure discipline like dressage or show jumping. It requires a lot of fitness. We're at high speeds over solid obstacles, galloping through water, over ditches, terrain. It takes a super athlete of a horse to do this sport. It's just so fun. I grew up pony clubbing and fox hunting and eventing and doing a little bit of everything, and I was always a kid that loved going fast, and I love galloping through water. It's really fun jumping in and out of water, and the horses love it. They absolutely love it. The bond between horse and rider is incredibly important. The communication and trust between horse and rider is huge. When I talk about how much I love the day-to-day training, that it's just the day-to-day language building with the animal is so intriguing to me. The highest level of any equestrian sport, the animal has to really want to do the job and love the job. You can't make them want to do it at the highest level. They also have to be that quarterback that can take a licking and keep on kicking, It was really important to me to see my sport evolve into something even better. It's always been an amazing sport, but how can we make it safer for the horses and riders? So I'm really excited about what I've seen and how the sport has evolved. It's everywhere from frangible technology to course design to helmet design, air vest design for the riders, and everything to make it just safer. I think that's important.
We've been asking things of horses for a long time. What's new is we keep asking them to go higher and higher within the sport. My father educated me, and he told me, he says, Kent, you will have some of the most incredible tools as you go on into your practice, and I have. I've had amazing diagnostic imaging tools. But he said the most important thing you will still ever have is your mind, your hands, your eyes, and your hoof testers, and not in that order. And he was right. No matter how technologically we are on the imaging end of it, the physical exam is still the important part. The hoof testers are still some of the most important tools I ever wield. When I started with 3-day eventing horses 35 years ago, you would go through some horses with a lot of soft tissue injuries that would drop out over time. Now we don't drop many of those out, and we keep their joints in better shape than we did back then. We've got a lot better tools to do it, and we're smarter about what the horse needs from both a physical, nutritional, and a mental standpoint to keep it going without frying it in the process. In our practice, we're all either horsemen or horsewomen, and we start with that and our love of horses, and then we develop it into what we can do to help the horse, and then what we can do to support the equine athlete, and then we all chase it down in our various disciplines. I'm having the opportunity to look at some very interesting cases here in the clinic, use top-of-the-line imaging equipment, delve into questions I never thought I could delve into as a young veterinarian. But you've got to have the love for the horse to make any of that be worthwhile or last as long as it has for me. The future of equine veterinary medicine, in particular with equine sports medicine and the upper athlete, is an area that is going to continue to grow. It's changed a lot because now it's teaching veterinarians to think differently about sports medicine instead of it's just a lame horse, fix it, to these are equine athletes, how can we keep them going at their best for years? There's a lot of cool things coming. There's ways to help the equine athlete know how fit they are, keep them sounder. We're going to see even more imaging breakthroughs. You know, digital radiography was the first, and it's not going to be the last. We're going to see standing CT, MRI. You know, the first time I ever heard a human doc tell me, oh, well, you know, you can take some of these medications and put them in horses' joints. You can turn back the clock on those joints. That's what's coming. It's getting better and better, and I'm excited about it.
Dressage is basically you go in the arena and you execute a certain level of compulsory movements, depending on the level you're competing at. A lot of it was originated or based on the use of horses back in the military and cavalry. It comes from sort of the need to having the horse be willing and able to execute movements when you say, where you say, and that kind of thing. All the horses are really all such individuals. Number one, they have to be an athlete. For me, that has a lot to do with like when you get on them, like how spongy. Like you don't want them too squishy and you don't want them too stiff. You want them like kind of right in the middle, muscle tone wise, kind of like a rubber ball. The second and equally important is the mind. Like there has to be some level of desire to do what we do, because what we do is quite hard. When they're super smart, that can be really helpful. Sometimes they use that against you. Sometimes they're more simple-minded and they take a little longer to learn something, but then they really just, they're very uncomplicated. Dressage centers a lot around us really wanting the horse to use their top line to the like sort of utmost capacity. When done really well, the horse sort of like engages really well through the top line and then sort of drapes themselves down or, you know, works up to that. So in terms of the horses that we like to find for dressage, it can be mare, stallion, gelding. I love the mares, I have to say. There's a little bit extra like feistiness in them to work with, but my top horse is a gelding, so like it really has everything to do with the individual. And in terms of breeds, mostly you're going to see a lot of different types of warm bloods, Danish, Dutch, all breeds of German, some Belgian. You'll see a few Russian here and there. You also see some of the Spanish breeds, Lusitano or Andalusian. The warm bloods, the reason they're so well suited to what we do is, number one, they've been being bred specifically for it now for quite a long time. It's like years of combining sort of a colder blood horse like a draft with like a hotter blood horse like a thoroughbred. Like that's a very, basic way of putting it. And then generations and generations have been doing this. So now what's developed are these very athletic horses, like very spectacular, moving just from a baseline. When you ride these horses, it's like the stuff they're put together with can have this incredible elasticity and like height off the ground in the gaits. And so when you're already starting from that place, that's like a big advantage. And now it starts to be a real requirement, like if you want to be competitive on the international stage. Exciting stuff for the future, at least for me. I think continuing for me personally to try and figure out the elite stuff all the way. We've been very close a few times and we're kind of right there. So it's like that perpetual challenge thing.
When we speak of competition in each discipline, you have elite athletes that are competing amongst other elite athletes, so they're like a professional football or professional baseball player. When we take an event like Run for a Million, you immediately jump to the Olympics. I mean, you jump to the best of the best. And so when you come in with all of the best to an event like Run for the Million, and you only get one run, it comes down to the capability of the horse, the skill of the rider, and a little bit of is just luck.
I never drove a Formula One car, but I would think if you ride a regular horse, it's like you drive your Dodge Dart. Those racing horses, they are like driving a Formula One car. This is the top of the top of the top. Anybody who ever rode a high-powered horse, it's a thrill. It's hard to describe. The Run for the Million is a racing event for the top 15 racing horses and rider in the world. I think you're gonna see the best horse-rider combinations there is at this given point on the planet. It's probably one of the biggest racing events in history. And you're running for $1 million. A lot goes in behind the scene. Your average person probably doesn't see and doesn't realize how much effort and time goes into those horses. It takes absolutely a team.
I grew up in the farm. My dad does show cattle. So I grew up in between animals and I was a horse person. And when I saw reining for the first time, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do my whole life. I can talk about reining on the horses the whole month, all day long. And now I'm working for Martin as his assistant, riding horses all day, come to the shows, helping him around here, helping him get them ready. They are not ours, but we treat them like if they are ours. Especially because they're athletes, performance horses. They need to be well taken care of, like kids.
When you compete, I feel like my horses try to give everything they have to give. I tell everybody if I could x-ray one thing, it would be the heart. Because if I have a little bit of soundness issues or something, most of the time my veterinarian can take care of it, but the heart is very, very important. So you do deal with an animal, it's not a machine, horses have the good and the bad days like the riders do, so you cannot mentally or physically overload the boat and ruin the horse. You need to know your horse's limits. You know, can I run up to the corner if my life depends on yes? Can I run a marathon? No, I'm gonna die. You just need to know where your boundaries are and stay in those boundaries.
When you're competing for $1 million, as opposed to the ring futurity, the 3-year-olds that you're competing for a couple $100,000, you know, that's a big difference. You know, so it's a pretty big event. There's not many events that you've got $1 million added to it.
I feel crazy, I feel nervous. Even if I sit in stands and I watch it, my heart's going like 1,000 miles an hour. I feel like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever in my life. I'm here, I can be here, be part of it.
Great horses are born. It's just the way it is, and I think the same with champions, you know what I mean? If you have a great horse, you know it will take you to the next level, and you just need to take care of them.
The horse is just like the human athlete, the elite athlete, in the sense that how many world records have they broken in the Olympics? I mean, every year, it's another one, it's another one, it's another one. And it isn't that we've built a superhuman athlete. It's that their training skills, their regimens that they use, the way they keep from getting injuries so that they continue to excel, just raises the bar even higher. And I think our horses are going to continually improve just like the human athletes do. Every year there's new stuff coming up. I mean, it's not like you can't just sit back and say, okay, I know it all, because you know everything, and there's more. The rest is still yet out there. So that's what got me into it. It's kept us going this long, so I guess we can't quit now.